With Will Levis heading to the bench, where do the Titans go at quarterback this offseason? Is Brian Callahan's offense ready for just a better quarterback to step in and make everything function at a higher level? We asked Nate Tice these questions today, and we're excited to dig in with him. Quarterback expert, former college quarterback, actually was Russell Wilson's backup, now covering the NFL for Yahoo. We had a great conversation with Nate Tice. Can't wait for you guys to hear it. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Oh, welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Broadway Sports Media in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo and Justin. We have something cool today. This was one of my favorite pods we've done this entire season.
Yeah, credit to you. You came up with the idea a couple weeks ago to bring Nate Tice on. Funny enough, when he was like tweeting very positive things about Will Levis, right? So when Will Levis was playing well, so that was the original intention. I reached out to him, grabbed his email, sent him an email, said, hey, my co-host is Justin Graver. He's a massive, massive deal. He's got many leather-bound books, and his apartment smells of rich mahogany. You should come on our podcast to talk about Will Levis. And Nate responded and agreed to come on. And the whole conversation shifted, though, because they benched Will Levis since we intended to bring Nate on. But it still makes for a great conversation. What was he seeing on tape? When he was playing well and playing poorly? The decision. We talked about Brian Callahan's offense. We talked about where they go from here, which is probably the most important question you guys are interested in hearing at this point. I think before we bring Nate on, you and I should probably comment on this decision to bench Will Levis. I mean, I'll get the obvious out of the way. It's not surprising. It makes sense, I think, at this point. All that growth that he had shown against the Texans, the Vikings, the Chargers, if you want to include them, maybe even Jacksonville a little bit, although 6 points, so not really. It all got flushed down the toilet against the Bengals. 4 turnovers, most of them, all of them were his fault, if you will. Led to 24 points for Cincinnati, including a pick 6. You just can't win football games when you do that. Titans entered this season looking to get an answer on whether or not Will Levis is a franchise quarterback. Unfortunately, they have their answer. It's just not what we hoped for, but they're telling you they have their answer, right? You don't bench a guy with 3 games left in the season if you feel you need the remaining sample size to get where you need to go from an answer perspective. So they've got their answer. He's not the guy. They're going to acquire another quarterback in the offseason. That's a foregone conclusion, a certainty. It's the right thing to do at this point, admitting defeat. Excited to bring Nate on, but I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, I want to comment on the benching quickly, too, because I've seen a lot of takes on Twitter that are like, this is so dumb. The Titans only have 3 games left. Like, what's the point of this? Mason Rudolph is boring. At least with Will Levis, you get the highs and the lows, and the highs are higher than Mason Rudolph. And if you're, in a position where you're not going to make the playoffs, just play the guy who's bad anyway, so you get a higher draft pick, blah, 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 blah. And look, I think there's a very simple explanation. Aside from the fact that Will Levis, frankly, sucks at quarterback, there's a very simple explanation for why Callahan had to do this. If he doesn't do this, you lose the whole team. You lose the entire locker room who puts in the work
about that
every single week. And he mentioned that too, that like his message will get lost. His message on you got to do your job or we will hold you accountable. If your performance isn't good enough, we will make a change. He talked about how they've done that at punt returner, at safety, at right tackle, a lot of positions at linebacker on this team where they've made a change because the performance wasn't good enough. And if you don't hold the quarterback position to the same standard, then you risk the message just falling on deaf ears. You risk losing the locker room. You risk guys quitting on the team because they don't believe that the guy on the field, the most important position in sports, gives them a real chance to win. And this, we've come a long way from Jeffrey Simmons calling Will Levis that dude, and the damn Will Levis can play, man, and all the stuff that Jeffrey Simmons said during Levis's debut against the Falcons last year. Like, too much has happened since then that I no longer believe any player on this team believes that Will Levis gives them the best chance to win. So you have to make the change because of that. Even if your goal ultimately is to get a higher draft pick or to complete the evaluation on Levis and you want to see these 3 more games, what are 3 more games going to tell you that you didn't learn already this season? So I agree with the move. It sucks. Like you said, it sucks that the answer to the question is unfortunately no, Will Levis is not a franchise quarterback. But there is a very good reason that he's benched, and I agree with Callahan's decision to do so. And like, It sucks, but that is where the Titans are at. These last 3 weeks might be really boring football because Mason Rudolph doesn't have nearly as low a floor as Will Levis, but he also has a much lower ceiling. The explosive plays are going to be few and far between outside of like big yak type plays. But it is what it is. Like the Titans have to do this to continue building a culture that they're trying to build. Are they failing at it? Maybe, but they're at least trying.
That's all that matters. As long as you try and have fun, it doesn't matter if you actually do it or not. No, I mean, I think everything you said is spot on. I think this is a good time for us to bring Nate Tice on because we had such a fascinating conversation with him about this and about Will Levis, the structure of the offense, what Brian Callahan is or may not be as a head coach, and I guess most importantly, where do they go from here? That's the question you and I are probably going to talk too much about over the next few months. Can't blame us. The fans are going to want to hear it. It's all we're really going to be talking about, I think, for the most part, in Nashville, in Tennessee, over this next little bit here as they prepare to move on. So a really good conversation with Nate Tice on that.
All right, let's bring on our guest now. He covers the NFL for Yahoo Sports, some stuff with NFL Network. He's the host of the Football 301 podcast alongside Matt Harmon and Charles McDonald. And I got to say, he grinds film as hard as maybe anybody else on the planet. It's Nate Tice. Nate, thank you so much for joining us today. How's it going?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, grinds film. All 22 film. My movie watching hasn't been up to snuff where I can be called a film, grinder in that aspect. I'm not a cinephile right now, but yes, no, thank you so much for having me. I'm pretty excited. Don't get to talk much Titans nationally. I keep trying to show interest and keep trying to play footsie with this organization. And they just can't, they just keep weaning themselves off of my discussions and off my bullet points. So I'm very excited to talk some Titans today.
Well, unfortunately, Graver and I get to talk a lot of Titans weekly, and one of the reasons we brought you on, Nate, it's funny. We initially booked you to talk about Will Levis's improvement because you had been kind of tweeting a lot of clips of how he'd been playing better these last couple of weeks, but things have changed. But to start there, what had you seen in recent weeks, including the initial improvement? That you tweeted out some clips about the Houston game where he played well, Minnesota had gone okay. What have you kind of seen, and what eventually you think led to the benching here, in your opinion?
It's not with quarterback evaluation, and especially anyone's listening to me or following his stuff. I always like quarterbacks that can chase the high, can do the hard things, accomplish all the throws. And it's not just throwing at 70 yards or anything like that. It's more just, can you place an over route? Can you throw a deep comeback? Are you willing to throw balls in tight spaces? And have the talent to do so, arm wise or mechanics wise, timing wise, with that. So Levis has upper tier throws. I think anyone that's watched him nationally, I know you guys watch him week to week, the highs are there. There's a dragon to chase here. It's just more about everything that happens in between those hits of Will Levis, of those highs of Will Levis. And that is where I saw after his, it was an injury / kind of felt like a quasi benching the first time / injury, that he came back, and it was like, it's the minutia with him. It's the in-between plays. It's the catastrophic mistakes that he has to avoid, sacks or turnovers in any way, shape or form. And I thought at least there was a positive stretch there. It's about consistency with him. I saw some consistency. It wasn't all great. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's gonna be, this is the guy right here. But it was something to work on. And it was something to build upon. And that was really encouraging to me, that I was like, okay, if he can finish the season like this, where it's not that he has to have a good game every week. It's just that he has to avoid the just terrible, oh my God, what were you thinking? 3 plays in a row, those types of games. And then when that happens, it's like, oh, okay. And guys, and the thing about, you want to develop quarterbacks and you want to give them time to leash. When you have a team makeup like the Titans do with so many vets and so many, and kind of they're not all in or anything like that, but they're building for a quicker push than I think people realize. And I think that it's kind of hard to go, hey, yeah, no, well, he's not there anymore, but hey, just work, DeAndre. Hey, it's going to work out. Just give him time. Hey, offensive lineman, keep working, keep blocking here. It's going to be okay. Hey, Tony Pollard, it's going to be okay. Hey, defense, Jeffrey Simmons and Snead and all these guys that we signed. Hey, it's going to be okay. Just work. We just got to work through these things. And then the guy turns the ball over and over and puts them in hard spots. It's just a hard sell. This is not a totally rebuilding team, even if they have the record of one. It's more they're kind of trying to bridge both things. And so I think it's just been hard for them to sell maybe Levis as going like, hey guys, stick with this, because maybe the team makeup is not in that position to do so. It's kind of like they damned themselves doing that in a way, which has been why for me as a national sense, I've been kind of all been TBD on the Titans, because it's like, I don't know what to make of them. I don't know what to make of this type of situation. So yeah, I just think that those mistakes being so catastrophic are just hard to overcome. A missed throw is a missed throw, or a one misread, but turning the ball over and taking 12-yard sacks, that's what's just hard to sell to the rest of the team that like, hey, this is worth building upon.
Well, that reached ahead here against the Bengals this past weekend. 4 turnovers turned into 24 points for the Bengals. That was the final straw. They've eventually now reached the conclusion of benching him. Yeah. Where do you think the struggles come from? Is it just limitations? Is it mental? Is it physical? What's your assessment on that?
There's some mental stuff, I think, with him where he's a hair slow to pull the trigger. Where he has all the arm talent in the world. I think anyone that watches him is like, wow. I mean, he can make every throw, and he throws a beautiful ball when he's in rhythm. And I think the Texans game, I got to see a little bit of that. I mean, he had a beautiful third down throw to Calvin Ridley that was deep, but it was in rhythm, stepping up into it. You knew he knew where to go with that ball. He knew he saw the right coverage, and he's like, got it. Okay, boom, I'm hitting this. There's a lot of times where I'm like, I feel like he's guessing a little bit, where he's going like, I think this is it. Is he coming open? Okay, now I'm going to throw it. He had another throw. I just watched the Bengals game right before I came on just to make sure. It's a TV copy. All 22 can really do very things for the brain. And sometimes some of my takes can seem wonky based off all 22 stuff. But he had a throw to Calvin Ridley, completion over the middle. He's a hair late on it, and Calvin makes a nice catch behind his body. His timing is not bad. His eyes are in the right place. He just has to wait that half second to make sure it's open and then throw. He's getting enough reps now that I'm not seeing that improve. And that's where I think that everything that he's hitting, every bad mistake comes from that little, it's not a hitch. It's not a mental block. It's just that's how he is. He has to confirm that it's open, and then he trusts his arm to get it to throw it open. Thing is, in the NFL, there's NFL windows, there's NFL timing. You're a half second late. It's hard. You can get away with it several times a game. Don't get me wrong. Josh Allen does it. Like the top guys do it, but it's a couple times a game. It's not every throw or 80% of the throws, 75% of the throws. That's where maybe some of my concerns have come with Levis, and I'm sure them too, is that you're making these plays just a little harder on yourself. But the thing was, this is how he was in college. So is this does a leopard never change its spots kind of thing? Can we coach this out of him? I'm not in the building. I've heard, I've heard that he's a hard worker and he does the right things. But the thing is like some guys just can't anticipate like that and don't see it like that. And that's where I think a lot of the blocks are coming right now. And I mean, it's not just showing up in one game. And now it's like pretty much every game, even his good games, it still shows up a little bit and he gets away with it. So I think that's where, before anything, his hiccups come because of that half second of hesitation he has before he pulls the trigger.
Right. And Brian Callahan was more or less hired to try to get the most out of Will Levis and sort of fix his issues. And this issue seems like one that, you go through the history of the NFL, it's very rare to find a quarterback who fixed the ability to like read the field and process quickly at a high level. So sort of feels like this might just be the end of Levis in Tennessee, but I'm curious because it's not the end of Brian Callahan, at least not yet. His offense that he's installed here, when you watch it, do you think he's missing a functional quarterback? And if he had that, this offense would be humming and playing at a higher level, at least than we've seen this year? Because even Mason Rudolph, who's come in and not turned the ball over nearly as much and sort of kept things on schedule, doesn't have the explosive play element that Levis brings, but also doesn't have the complete disaster that loses you the game element either.
Right.
But is this offense, like if you put in just like an average level quarterback play into this offense, do you think everything else is being like schemed open enough and like the play calling, like the rhythm that Callahan gets in? Have you been impressed by it? Have you been questioning it? Like, where do you fall on that?
Excuse me. It reminds me a lot actually of what Cleveland does. And that makes sense with the offensive line coach that these guys have, and Bill Callahan.
Right.
It's a very traditional NFL offense, and that's good and bad. And I think it's a good sound offense. Like I have no qualms with it, no qualms with the designs. But the thing is, if you're going to be a good sound traditional offense, you need a quarterback because the
Right.
designs are not going to pop things open. Like something that's a little wonky, like the Dolphins. They're their own thing. They pop open guys, and even if it's some traditional stuff, that the window dressing creates so much more that Tua gets more room for error. So I think long term it's fine. It's just that you need a dude. They also need a right tackle.
Yes.
You can't go through another year with this. It kneecaps the entire offense. Like it's no one gives up more pressures, gives up more sacks than Petit Ferrer, like in the NFL.
Yeah.
So it's like not just right tackles, any position. So like that has to be fixed. And so it's just that. And so how they want to attack too, you can kind of see Callahan has probably got this from his dad. It's different than what the Bengals ran because you don't have Joe Burrow who can sit in the shotgun 90% of the time and nickel and dime. So it's going to be a run first attack and then play action off of that, which I'm always fine with. I think that's a good way to go have a high floor as an NFL offense. I think the scheme is sound. There's no play designs where I'm like, oh, why were you doing that? Some execution isn't always there,
Yeah.
but I always understand the intent of all of it, which is, so to me, it's like a B level scheme, I would say. Maybe Kellen Moore gives me kind of similar feelings where it's like, I don't think this is bad, but is it the most creative thing I've ever seen in my life? No, like
Right.
there's some kind of, leaves me a little wanting more. But again, that might be because of the quarterback they have and they want to make things streamlined for him and making sure he can understand that. I think the run game's really come along. I really has, and it's gonna because of I would have Brian Callahan just so I got Bill Callahan as my offensive line coach. Like that's a nice little boost to have with this
Yeah.
team. And I'm seeing the dividends paid. It's just that, they need better play from back there or more, just like you said, average play. That's just not going to kneecap them because they were built defense first this year and have a run game. And if the passing game was tolerable, they'd be in a much better spot. It's just that it's so volatile that you can't rely on it right now. I would say the left side of the offensive line is really kicking ass in the run game. I'm a big fan of Latham. So it made so much sense that Callahan went after him. But in the run game, they're great. I thought he had some good reps against Hendrickson too. Latham did and pass pro. He got him at the end.
Yeah.
But he had some nice one-on-one reps, which is Hendrickson's the worst type of guy for Latham to go against. Speed rusher with hands. So, but I could see what they're trying to build here. It's just so hard when the quarterback is so up and down like this to go, is this good or are they handicapped because of what the quarterback is? So, but if I was just properly evaluating Callahan's scheme and this offensive scheme, it's like a B to me.
That seems like probably the conclusion we've all drawn too. And one thing we've been wondering over the last few weeks, months even, is like, would Brian Callahan be best suited as an offensive coordinator in the NFL? Like, has he sort of Peter principled his way up to head coach where he's really best suited to just call plays for an offense and design the scheme? Is there anything like from a larger team standpoint? I guess I'm going to ask it this way. Scale of 1 to 5, if you were a Titans fan, how worried would you be that this time next year, the conversation around the Titans is, will Brian Callahan survive for a third season?
I'd say a 3 because I'm copping out. There's been some answers and some press conference stuff where he seems a little overwhelmed or where he kind of just says a little too much where he's like, you learn to become more jaded and more to the vest as you get as you have to speak every week.
Right.
So I think there's some aspects of that, which kind of surprised me because of his dad. And I thought maybe he's like, oh, I'm going to try this a little different. And it's like, oh, maybe that's why every other coach talks this way. It doesn't say too much and everything. JJ Redick's going through the same thing as the Lakers head coach. It's like, oh, this all sounded good before we played games. Oh, now we lose. Oh, my jokes and fun things aren't as fun anymore. It's so hard for me because like through this year and it feels like such a mess. They have to change the special teams coach.
Yeah.
I know that. I think that's the first thing. I think some changes this offseason will tell me a lot. As far as like how he feels in the self-assessment. But I would say in a year from now, if it just feels the same way, it's so sloppy. I know I'm talking about stuff in my mouth, but there has been better stuff. Like, I do think the offense has become a little bit better and a little more sound, even without the quarterback stuff. And then the defense was so vet heavy that's kind of like, I don't know, anybody can kind of call plays. Because it's kind of like, I don't know, some of those guys run themselves out there. Yeah, I would say in a year, I'd put it at a 3, I guess. Like, as far as like, yeah, there's some concerns, maybe some of the stuff, some new coachness to all of this, but also let them work out the kinks in a season that's kind of a lost season. Sorry to say it that way, but yeah.
No, it is.
Getting into the real difficult stuff now, Nate. This is, it's pretty clear they're going to be moving on here, or it seems that way, right? Like benching him now for these final 3 games, admitting defeat essentially on him. There's no straightforward solution available this offseason. They're probably not going to be in, Sanders, Cam Ward territory. Not that those guys are, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow type of generational prospects, if you will. Free agency leaves a lot to be desired as well. It's a weak QB class after you get past the first 2. Where are you going if you're Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan this summer?
Hi, Sam Darnold. How much are you going to cost? That's it. I think that's Jacoby Brissett is another path that they can go on, but that it feels like a kick in the can, but at least Brissett can run an offense. He's as good as his surroundings are, as a quarterback. So if you built up a better infrastructure, you want Brissett, used your top 10 pick, add another weapon or add another lineman or something of that sort. Like, okay, we got a little stew going here, and then you drop in the rookie quarterback. In the following year, I would say that you don't want Cam Ward or Shedeur if you're the Titans, especially in the top 10. I think it's a very scary draft for quarterbacks. And I mean, I've been watching these guys. I'm trying to find paths, but like these guys to me are not guys you take in the top 10, top 15, barely even the top 20, if I'm being honest. Like I have Levis and Cam Ward and Shedeur were all great. They're all basically graded the same to me as prospects. More or less, same tier, give or take. And yeah, I don't think the Titans should be going after one of them. I think they should be trying to find their own version of Geno, or I would not go for Cousins, but I would say, I would try and go down the Sam Darnold road. He's volatile too, but I do know that his baseline's way higher than this. Like even bad Sam Darnold, his baseline was still like slightly below average. I know there's been so many jokes about it we look back and it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad compared to like some of these other young quarterbacks we've been trotting out here the last few years. It's just funny how things get skewed, New York Jets, all that.
Yeah.
But like him, like he would be a path, those types of, I don't know about Jameis, but that's, then you're a carnival show. Then you're just like, all right, 7-10 at best and have a fun offense every few weeks. So to me, for this next year, I wouldn't commit to a freshman quarterback, a rookie quarterback. And because then that's your timeline that like, you're it, that's it. This is our guy now. Because this is our actually hand appointed guy, even though Rand drafted Levis and, and then all that. But I would much rather go down a vet and use that top 10 pick to take another spot. It's not a great draft. It just not even just quarterbacks, just overall. It's kind of it's a draft that you want picks in the 20s. You want a lot of picks between 20 and 60, and you don't want a top 10 pick. That's how I've been viewing this draft.
Interesting. Yeah, because you could, look at the right tackle position and, do you spend a top 10 pick on right tackle, another first round pick on the offensive line, but hope that
there's some edge guys, there's some, there's line play would be where you'd want to go in this draft.
Right.
Or tight end, but I don't know, like that's second round, day 2, but it's not a great receiver class either. Tet McMillan's really good. I like him. And then Luther Burden's explosive, but then it's a lot of round 2, day 2 guys too on top of that. So yeah, it's eye of the beholder draft. I'll just say that.
It's interesting that you went to Sam Darnold because he's been a pretty hot name amongst Titans fans the last week or so. Well, I guess since Sunday, last 3-4 days. But there are obviously concerns that coming out of Kevin O'Connell's system where he has Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson to throw to, is that something that he's going to be able to be the same level of play, play at that same high level that he's done most of this season? And he's had some moments this year where he wasn't playing at a super high level either. But his ability to navigate pressure has looked a lot better with Minnesota than it did previously in his career. And so I think things like that would translate to the Titans offense. But then there's just the fear that Kevin O'Connell has proven now to be a really good offensive coach, really good with quarterbacks. We're seeing what Kirk Cousins is doing in Atlanta after leaving O'Connell, and maybe that's the Achilles tear, but maybe it's being away from that system. Do you have concerns that Darnold, that's like he could be, turned back into a pumpkin or whatever with his next team?
Yeah, it won't look like this. I could assure you that. Even the Titans sign him and everything. Yeah, having Jefferson makes everybody's lives easier. Even O'Connell's. He does a great job of using that against defenses, as using their own kind of way to play Jefferson, but it makes everybody else's lives easier. Why is Jordan Addison breaking out? Well, when the safety always plays to Jefferson's side, it really helps out the other players, and it makes the run game a lot better. But that offensive attack, and Callahan's kind of been a little bit everywhere, but Zach Taylor was a McVay guy, and then O'Connell's a McVay guy, but they've all run. I mean, the Bengals offense is nothing. The Bengals offense is the Joe Burrow offense, and I just want to yell at Bengals fans to realize that. Run more play action. Your quarterback does not want to run more play action. Run more motion. Your quarterback does not want to run more motion. That's why you guys are not doing those things. But I think that wouldn't be as crazy as far as terminology for Darnold to come in. So I do think that is one aspect that's good, but it's not going to be as high as this year. It's impossible because it's just the ecosystem that he's around. I will say, especially when Cushenberry comes back, is the Titans offensive line is better than the Vikings offensive line. I know that's crazy to say, but it is. Even with the right tackle situation.
Wow.
The interior of the Vikings offensive line is terrible. And I think Darisaw was good, got hurt. Cam Robinson's doing whatever he can, but he's given up the most pressures at the left side. And then on the right side, Brian O'Neill is good, but then, he's got baked up too. But I would say the rest, like Titans, to me, with Cushenberry healthy, those are 3 good starters that they have. Vikings have 2-ish, and one of them's hurt, always hurt every single year. So I do think that helps because pressure is where you get bad dice roll Darnold. He has been good in the pocket, but then you can live with his negative plays because he's such an aggressive player and he's going to find and attack things. It's almost like a Diet Coke version of Levis is bad, but then his betters, and you know what I mean? Like they kind of are from the same archetype. But like Darnold's a little bit more of a polished version of it and actually throws with anticipation. But I think that's where you won't maybe get as many of those negatives. I think there'll be more run first if Darnold was in this offense based on just what they want to do. And then the play action stuff, I think Darnold's comfortable with. So I do think there's a good fit, but yeah, the highs won't be this high, but the lows won't be what everyone pictures Darnold as with the Jets. But I do think he can be an adequate quarterback at the very least in this type of offense, more that 18th-ish starter. But if the rest of the ecosystem is good, okay, that's a good place to kind of be at, if you build up the rest of it.
Right. You can make the playoffs with a roster like that. Minnesota's proving that you can be in the hunt for the division. Yeah.
And there's regular season, there's playoffs. I know I'm not revolutionary in saying this, but a quarterback like Darnold gives you a chance in the playoffs because he if you have a defense and a run game, and I know that sounds like you have to have a perfect world, but this is what teams are building, especially in the NFC. You just need a quarterback that can get hot. Like you go on that Flacco run. You can have an ace and have one of the dudes, that everybody wants. But guess what? How many teams have one of those dudes? It's on one hand.
Yeah.
The rest of the teams that don't have one of those dudes, it's building up the ecosystem and hoping the guy can get hot. And that's what you live with. And that's the system you have to build up. But you have to have a run game. And then the passing game has to be explosive. The Titans are naturally trying to build that way. Darnold could live in that world. Like Titans are actually a good makeup for him. I wouldn't want him with, not that, but the Raiders, or like, because I just think they'd put it all on him. And you don't want it all on him. But I think the Titans are set up okay for it.
Cool. Well, there you go, Titans fans. Sam Darnold. Look forward to that next year.
Tice Earl Darnold.
Nate, we really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here. Everyone out there, go follow Nate Tice on Twitter if you don't already, at Nate_Tice. Check out the Football 301 podcast. And Nate, really appreciate it, man.
No, thank you guys for having me. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks again to Nate Tice. Really great stuff there. I'm so glad we had the opportunity to talk to him and get his opinion there. Justin, let's hit I'll drink to that. brought to you by Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville here. And here's what I'm drinking to, Justin. This one might throw you off a little bit, a little curveball. I'm drinking to the fact that unless they beat the Colts this weekend, which, hey, they might, but I'm not expecting the Titans to go beat the Colts. I'm not expecting the Titans to go beat anyone ever again, at least not in 2024. Sorry. No matter what happens this weekend between Jacksonville and Las Vegas, the Titans will benefit in the draft order because they play each other, Jacksonville and Las Vegas. One of them has to get a win. If it's Jacksonville, they'll move to 4-11 and presumably will move behind Tennessee, again, as long as Tennessee doesn't also win. The Raiders, if they win, they'll go to 3-11 and be tied with the Titans, and their strength of schedule is, well, it's harder than the Titans, so I don't know how the tiebreakers would work there, but I don't think they would actually, I think that they would still be picking ahead of the Titans, but then you're one game closer to passing another team and getting higher in the draft order. And again, like whatever the draft order is, whatever you think it is, like getting a higher pick may or may not actually benefit you in the long run. It's kind of a who cares thing at this point. We'll talk about it more in April, but there's not a lot to drink to right now, Justin. So that's what I am drinking to. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to drink to officially closing the book on Will Levis, because I'll tell you what, the worst thing that this season did for me as a fan even of the team is it was just boring, to be honest with you. Like, as someone who, you know, it's ironic in a way, like someone who just wrote a book about the team and covered every single season in franchise history and got to ride the highs and the lows. This is unfortunately up there with the lowest of the lows, and certainly from a success perspective, but it's also one of the darkest eras, 3 straight years of double-digit losses. Like, they're in a bad place right now, and this year was more boring than ever because they didn't have a Derrick Henry to at least kind of, pique my interest at the television when they were playing. This was a boring year. I was numb. I felt nothing. I kind of said that before, but I mean it. Like, I'm watching games on Sunday on my phone. Like, I mean, like, I'm texting friends. Like, I'm totally not invested. I do not care. So for me, just being honest, like, I'm like, and that's, I never thought I would reach this point. Like, that's what this year has done for me. I'm not going to stay like that forever. I cannot wait to get another quarterback to have false hope over.
Right.
I'm kidding about the false hope.
But seriously,
like,
that's part of the cycle of fandom.
like we just talked to Nate Tice. Like, after this, I would be very excited about Sam Darnold. I'd be excited about Kirk Cousins. I would, because I think he's a starting caliber quarterback, and they didn't have that, and just average play.
Justin Fields, what's the excitement level?
Bad fit for the Callahan offense, almost none. I mean, they'll run the ball a ton.
But his name is Justin. We are Justin.
If we brought him on here, it'd be the Justin show. No, I mean, I just don't see him being the guy. So personally, Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, like, hell, I hate the idea of Aaron Rodgers, but at least there'd be a sideshow to follow, right? Like, just something to bring some excitement to the. Obviously, you don't want to make a mistake that's going to hamstring you long term, but I'm just looking forward to closing the book on Will Levis and upgrading at quarterback. And, I'm it's honestly so bad right now. Give me a Matt Hasselbeck 9-7 year. Like, that was, it was okay, right? Like, they competed for the playoffs. They were in the thick of it till the end. When you're this bad, when you experience years this bad, you just want to be in the thick of it, I feel like, right? Obviously, you know what the ultimate goal is at the end of the day, but this is so much worse than this, that you'll take this when you have it, right? So for me, it's just about closing the book and being excited about a quarterback again.
I can drink to that as well. I'll drink to that. Brought to you by Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store serving the community since 1985. Their knowledgeable staff is proud to help you with large parties, themed events, or finding something unique for a special occasion. From birthday parties to milestone celebrations to everyday moments, Sinkers can help with the right drink for every occasion. And if you head to the sinkersbeverages.com website or check the link in this podcast description, you can join the In Crowd. In Crowd members get access to allocated wines and spirits, exclusive events, early access to barrel releases, and more. All right, Justin, let's transition and talk a tiny bit about the Colts-Titans game. Again, we don't care about previewing games anymore because, as you just mentioned, this season sucks. But if there's one thing to take away from Will Levis being terrible, it's that Anthony Richardson is just as bad. Anthony Richardson can run and create plays with his legs way better than Will Levis, no argument there, but he cannot play quarterback at the NFL level. They need to turn this guy into a Taysom Hill or a Justin Fields sub-package player because he's not an NFL quarterback. He's going to get another year. At least the Titans have their answer on Will Levis. The Colts are going to run it back with Richardson. So I say all that now. Richardson's going to complete 6 50-plus yard bombs on the Titans defense.
He's going to Malik Willis them. Week 3 all over again.
Yeah. So let's get into predicting this game. Now, before we do, we're going to look at last week. Justin and I had a extremely difficult time scoring our predictions from this past game. You had Bengals 30, Titans 23. So a 7-point Bengals win. In reality, it was a 10-point Bengals win. You're pretty close. I had Bengals 34, Titans 28. A 6-point Bengals win. Now, you were a little bit closer, 1 point closer on the score differential. I was much closer on the actual points scored. I missed the Bengals by 3 and the Titans by 1. You missed the Bengals by 7 and the Titans by 4. So it's like, do I go with giving you the win because you had the margin of victory 1 point closer, or do I give myself the win because I had both team scores closer than you had either team score?
Can I decide this for us right now?
Yeah.
It's the holidays. I'm in a charitable giving mood. You go ahead and take the win. You're not going to catch up to me anyway. It's like, it really feels like charity. You're still behind me. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the win on this one.
You know what? I really appreciate that because you're now 8-6. I'm now 6-8. That means as we head down the stretch here, again, I got to win every game to even have a chance in the end. But it's going to
get hot.
It could come down to the wire. So I appreciate the integrity there, giving me the win. Why don't you tell me what you got for Titans Colts?
Yeah, you've been going first the last couple weeks. I
Yeah.
know your tricks of the trade, so I'm going to go first this week. I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm going to bash my head against the wall. Teams typically respond to a benching. They've won a couple games with Mason Rudolph this year. The Colts are borderline disaster. I mean, did you see that pick 6 last week? That was on the trick play. It was hilarious. I would say borderline embarrassing. It was embarrassing. Titans get the boost of benching a quarterback. Did you hear Brian Callahan teed off on Easton Freeze?
Don't
in his
call this
conference.
Team soft.
Teed
You
off
will
on
feel
him.
the wrath.
I heard in practice they're going to put pictures of Easton Freeze's head on all the sleds. They're going to be going hard at practice this week. They're going to be fired up. They're going to show toughness. They're going to show physicality, and they're going to beat the Colts. Mason Rudolph coming in gives them the typical – it's like an interim head coach. I always bet on a team when there's an interim head coach involved, right? It's an interim quarterback because he won't be here next year. It's an interim quarterback in Mason Rudolph. Titans win 24-20.
Wow. Titans win 24-20. Well, you know what? Don't bet on the interim coach if it's Thomas Brown, and don't bet on the interim coach if it's Jeff Ulbrich, because those guys lost their debuts as interim head coaches. Darren Rizzi, bet on him all day. Bet on him every time. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you to some degree. I do think like that you can cut out the catastrophic mistakes, but at the same time, we've seen Mason Rudolph throw bad interceptions. We saw him fumble the ball. Like, we've seen him make mistakes too. And I just feel like after what happened to the Colts, like Michael Pittman, terrible fumble last week. Jonathan Taylor, stupidest play you can do in football, drop the ball before crossing the goal line. Adonai Mitchell, like, sets up to throw the back across the field pass, like holding the ball and like adjusting his grip on it for like 4 seconds before he finally throws it. And Nick Bonito picks it off and takes it all the way. Like, those 3 guys are not Anthony Richardson, and those 3 guys made crucial game-losing plays for the Colts. I just feel like they're going to respond better. I don't know. I don't have any faith at all that the Titans can beat anybody. So this is going to be an easy one, Justin. We don't really have to nail the score. We just have to nail the winner, because you're going Titans. I'm going Colts 20-17 victory over the Titans for Indianapolis. And I don't feel great about it, but it is what it is. I do think the Colts are going to win at home against this Titans team. All right. Any last thoughts? Any final wrap-ups? Don't call the Titans soft. Yes, we hit that. Think we're good, right? Let's wrap this bitch up. Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah, Brian Callahan's had quite the influence on you. You're dropping swear words here on the pod. No, just a programming note for our listeners. This was a phenomenal pod with Nate Tice. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back on Sunday, as per usual, to recap the Colts game. If you've noticed, we typically release the midweek pod on Wednesday. Next Wednesday is a little holiday called Christmas.
Have you heard of it?
Because you may have heard of it. The big guy, JC himself, his birthday, you may have heard of it. But
Not Latham.
What we're going to do, as a programming note, we're going to record an episode, full transparency, this Friday with another great guest. we're really excited for that. We'll probably, I don't know, I haven't even talked to Graver about this. Thinking we'll release it on Thursday. Maybe do like a Boxing Day release, because I don't know who's going to listen to it on Christmas Day itself or Christmas Eve. I'll let Graver decide. Ridiculous. I'll let Graver decide. I don't care if it's Christmas Eve or Boxing Day, but it probably won't be Christmas. It'll be one or the other. The one caveat, and I don't think it matters, but we're fully admitting this, we're recording it on Friday, so we're recording it before they play on Sunday, right? So you're not going to have all that. But anyway, you're going to get the Sunday recap on Sunday. Just the following episode, the midweek discussion we have with another great guest, is not going to include anything that happened on Sunday. I don't think that matters. Who gives a shit? They're 3-11. It's Mason Rudolph. Like it does, there's nothing to really talk about on Wednesday that happened on Sunday. You're going to get all of it on Sunday anyway. We're just going to have another great broad discussion with a wonderful guest, because you guys have been enjoying those episodes lately with Easton Freeze and James Foster, Zach Lyons. I think this one with Tice went well. So look forward to another one of those dropping on Tuesday or Thursday.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do give a shit, let us know in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button to the channel and drop a comment below. What do you think the Titans should do at quarterback? Scale of 1 to 10, how excited would you be for Sam Darnold? Or would you not be excited at all? 10 is I'm buying my Super Bowl ticket. 1 is I'm never watching the Titans again. Let us know in the comments below. And thanks again to Sinkers Beverages. We'll be back, like Justin said, on Sunday to recap Titans Colts. So until then, y'all stay safe out there and don't call the Titans soft.
A Broadway sports media production.